Throughout history, whispers have persisted of documents so powerful, so forbidden, that entire civilizations feared their revelation. Hidden away in shadowed chambers, locked behind iron gates, or buried in secret vaults beneath monasteries and castles, these scrolls were never meant for the eyes of the public. They were the vessels of knowledge that could disrupt empires, challenge kings, and reshape the understanding of the world. For centuries, rulers, religious authorities, and secret orders conspired to erase them, to ensure that what humanity could see and know remained carefully curated. Yet, traces persist. Fragments, copied pages, and cryptic references in other texts hint at truths long concealed. These are the forbidden scrolls that time tried to erase. What makes a scroll forbidden? It is not merely a matter of age or fragility. These were texts containing information so extraordinary, so subversive, that revealing them might have toppled regimes, revealed the inner workings of secret hierarchies, or exposed the hidden hands guiding the course of history. Some claim these scrolls recorded knowledge far beyond the ordinary scope of human understanding, touching on prophecy, hidden sciences, and power structures invisible to the public eye. Others whisper that they contain names, lineages, and agreements that bound the fates of entire kingdoms and empires. To discover them is to glimpse the machinery of history itself, the hidden gears turning behind the curtains of accepted narratives. Evidence of these texts surfaces in curious ways. A scholar's marginal notes hint at a lost manuscript. A burnt library catalog contains the faint imprint of a missing title. An inquisitor's report speaks of a text seized and destroyed because its words were dangerous to the soul. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect is how consistently they vanish. Across continents and centuries, forbidden scrolls follow a pattern. They appear, they influence, and then they disappear. Theories abound as to why, and to whom, they truly belong. Some historians suggest that these documents were never lost. They were simply kept by those who understood their power. Others believe that the content itself was deemed too dangerous, a secret too explosive for the masses, and thus systematically eradicated. Yet the allure of these scrolls is irresistible. Scholars, adventurers, and collectors have spent lifetimes in pursuit of fragments and clues, sometimes finding astonishing coincidences linking disparate parts of history. An obscure manuscript in a Tibetan monastery may share cryptic symbols with a European alchemical text. A note hidden in a Persian archive may echo instructions found centuries later in a Venetian codex. These parallels fuel the speculation that the forbidden scrolls were not isolated curiosities, but part of a broader, interconnected network of knowledge, a network deliberately concealed from public view. The danger of these scrolls has always been twofold. First, there is the literal danger. Those who sought them sometimes vanished mysteriously, disappeared in fires, or faced persecution by authorities determined to prevent the knowledge from spreading. Second, there is the intellectual danger. The ideas contained within could challenge deeply ingrained beliefs, rewrite history, and force a society to confront uncomfortable truths about who really wielded power. This dual threat is perhaps why so many stories about these texts are cloaked in secrecy, half-truths, and rumor. They exist in the shadows, glimpsed only through fragmented accounts and enigmatic references, but their influence echoes across time. The locations of the scrolls remain shrouded in mystery. Some were hidden in monasteries perched atop rugged mountains, unreachable except to the initiated. Others were smuggled into secret chambers beneath palaces, their contents guarded by codes and ciphers designed to thwart prying eyes. Rumors speak of underground libraries that survive to this day, containing scrolls written on materials that defy decay, chronicling not just events but the hidden forces behind them. These sanctuaries, often overlooked by mainstream historians, were the crucibles where knowledge was preserved, passed from one custodian to the next, generation after generation. And yet, despite centuries of suppression, these scrolls persist in the collective consciousness. They haunt libraries, monasteries, and archives, Their presence hinted at encryptic marginalia, encoded artwork, and scattered references in surviving literature. For those who seek them, they offer more than historical curiosity. They promise the revelation of a hidden world, the unveiling of the invisible rulers shaping the destinies of nations. The pursuit is perilous, the trail elusive, but the allure is undeniable. Every fragment, every encoded symbol, every whispered reference offers a tantalizing glimpse into a reality that exists parallel to our own, a world shaped not by the history written in textbooks, but by the hidden hands that have long directed the course of civilization from the shadows. As we begin to trace the path of these forbidden scrolls, one question looms larger than all others. What might we discover if we could read the words once concealed? Could they reveal the names of those who have truly controlled the course of history? Or perhaps they contain a knowledge so profound and dangerous that humanity was never meant to fully understand it. The journey to uncover the truth behind these scrolls is not merely an exploration of history. It is an invitation to peer behind the veil into a world where power, secrecy, and knowledge intersect in ways that challenge everything we think we know. Throughout the ages, the most dangerous knowledge was never destroyed, it was protected. Hidden away by guardians, often cloaked in anonymity, these custodians of forbidden texts operated in shadows, preserving wisdom that could upend kingdoms and challenge the established order. Their names rarely appear in official history, yet their influence was profound. Monks in remote monasteries, secretive scribes in forgotten libraries, and clandestine societies passing knowledge in whispered codes across continents have all acted as invisible sentinels, ensuring that dangerous truths did not vanish entirely, even as they were suppressed. The very concept of a guardian of knowledge evokes an air of mystery and solemn responsibility. These individuals or groups understood that the scrolls they protected contained more than just words. They contained power. In some cases, the knowledge was spiritual, revealing truths about the cosmos, the human soul, or divine law. In others, it was political, exposing networks of influence and hidden hierarchies that shaped empires from behind closed doors. What united them across time and place was a single guiding principle. Knowledge is both a weapon and a shield, and those entrusted with it bore a weight far heavier than any crown. Consider the monastic orders of medieval Europe. While the outside world saw humble monks devoted to prayer and study, some were also the keepers of texts that mainstream society would later deem heretical. In monasteries perched atop mountains or tucked deep in forests, entire libraries were devoted to manuscripts forbidden by kings and popes alike. Every manuscript copied, every symbol cataloged, was a deliberate act of preservation, a rebellion against enforced ignorance. It was a delicate balance. Too much exposure risked persecution or destruction. Too little, and the knowledge might fade into oblivion. For centuries, these silent guardians acted as intermediaries between the ancient past and the future, carefully choosing who might access the information they held. But the guardians were not confined to monasteries alone. Across the Middle East, in hidden chambers of palaces, scholars maintained private archives accessible only to the initiated. Some were advisors to rulers, entrusted with secrets that determined the outcomes of wars and the rise or fall of dynasties. In Asia, Confucian scholars, Taoist mystics, and Buddhist monks alike safeguarded manuscripts containing knowledge of governance, ethics, and esoteric philosophy. Even in societies where open rebellion against authority was impossible, these custodians found subtle ways to transmit information through allegory, coded language, and carefully concealed symbols embedded in art and architecture. The methods of secrecy were as varied as the knowledge itself. Some scrolls were written in ciphers so complex that only those trained for decades could decode them. Others were sealed in lead or gold, hidden beneath floorboards or inside statues, awaiting a future age when the world might be ready to comprehend their meaning. In some traditions, guardians swore oaths that bound them to protect knowledge even at the cost of their own lives. Failure to do so was considered a moral, spiritual, and sometimes physical transgression, punishable not just by earthly law, but by the traditions of the order itself. The role of these guardians was not merely defensive, they were also selective. Knowledge could not be freely given. It had to be passed to those deemed worthy, individuals with the discernment, discipline, and moral grounding to wield it responsibly. This selectivity ensured that the scroll's power did not fall into the hands of the reckless, the ambitious, or the tyrannical. Legends abound of apprentices, scholars, or initiates tested through riddles, trials, and years of study before being granted access to the hidden truths. In some cases, the very act of learning from a forbidden scroll was transformative, altering the student's perception of reality, history, and their place in the cosmos. Its secrecy alone was not enough. Guardians had to contend with relentless threats, invasions, inquisitions, political purges, and inquisitive outsiders. Entire libraries were burned, scholars imprisoned or executed, and texts lost forever. And yet, despite these dangers, fragments persisted, hidden in plain sight, misattributed, or encoded in works considered mundane. It is through these fragments that modern historians and investigators catch glimpses of a vast hidden network, spanning continents and centuries, devoted to preserving knowledge the world was not meant to see. The influence of these guardians extends beyond the survival of texts. They shaped the very way knowledge was transmitted, controlling the flow of information to ensure that history, as recorded, remained aligned with their intentions. They created a parallel history, a narrative written in shadows, accessible only to those who knew where and how to look. From marginal notes in ancient manuscripts to secret symbols in architecture, from encoded treaties to the oral traditions of secluded sects, the fingerprints of these guardians are everywhere if one knows how to recognize them. And yet, for all their efforts, mysteries remain. Many scrolls were undoubtedly lost forever, swept away by time, greed, or fear. But the fact that fragments persist in monasteries, libraries, and private collections around the world suggests that the guardians succeeded far more often than they failed. They maintained a hidden archive of human knowledge, a silent counterbalance to the forces that sought to suppress understanding and maintain control. These guardians were not merely archivists. They were the invisible architects of memory itself, ensuring that even in an age of destruction, some truths survive to whisper their secrets across time. As we continue our exploration of the Forbidden Scrolls, it becomes clear that understanding the knowledge alone is insufficient. One must also understand the hands that protected it, the networks that shielded it, and the sacrifices made to ensure its survival. For it is in the Guardian's devotion, secrecy, and wisdom that we find the bridge between the hidden rulers of history and the forbidden scrolls that reveal them, a bridge that will guide us deeper into the shadows of power and closer to the truths the world has long sought to conceal. Long before kings, parliaments, or modern institutions, ancient civilizations flourished across the globe. They built monumental cities, complex governments, and intricate social systems. Yet beneath the surface of their impressive achievements, there existed hidden hierarchies that history has seldom acknowledged. In the shadows of their pyramids, ziggurats, and palaces, a network of elites controlled the flow of knowledge, wielding influence over society in ways that are only now beginning to be understood. The forbidden scrolls we seek may offer a glimpse into these early structures of power, revealing that the manipulation of information and authority is not a modern invention, but a practice as old as civilization itself. Take, for instance, the Sumerians, whose cuneiform tablets are among the earliest known written records. While many of these texts recount mundane matters, trade, law, and agriculture, hidden among them are cryptic accounts of rulers, councils, and priestly classes whose authority extended far beyond ordinary governance. Some tablets suggest knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and ritual that far exceeded what would have been necessary for day-to-day administration. Scholars have speculated that these early elites maintained control not only through military might or economic dominance, but through access to knowledge that the general populace could neither comprehend nor question. Egypt provides another example of this concealed hierarchy. The pharaohs are celebrated in history for their grandeur and divine status. Yet behind their gilded thrones existed a labyrinth of advisors, priests, and scribes who managed the flow of information and preserved secret wisdom. Temples and tombs were not merely religious sites. They were archives of knowledge, often encoded in symbols and rituals inaccessible to ordinary citizens. Hieroglyphs, many still not fully deciphered, may contain layers of meaning intended only for the initiated, hinting at a deeper understanding of astronomy, cosmology, and metaphysical principles. The forbidden scrolls, if they existed in these contexts, would have been instruments of power, revealing which individuals or families truly directed the course of dynasties from behind the public spectacle. In Mesoamerica, civilizations like the Maya and the Aztecs developed elaborate calendars, astronomical observations, and codices that rival the complexity of Old World scholarship. Yet much of this knowledge was confined to priestly classes who determined the timing of rituals, agricultural cycles, and political decisions. Codices that survived Spanish conquest hint at esoteric knowledge, sometimes referencing hidden rulers, sacred lineages, or cosmic principles influencing human affairs. The suppression and destruction of these codices by conquerors was not merely an act of cultural erasure. It was also a strategic removal of knowledge that might challenge the imposed authority. What survived offers tantalizing clues, encoded warnings, symbolic histories, and hints at a broader network of power that may have extended across regions and generations. Even in the East, ancient civilizations like those of China and India maintained complex hierarchies where knowledge was power. Imperial archives and secret teachings were reserved for scholars, spiritual adepts, and the ruling elite. Confucian, Taoist, and Vedic texts often contained layers of meaning, with practical instructions for governance intertwined with metaphysical principles. Certain scrolls and manuscripts were deliberately obscured or passed only orally to trusted disciples, ensuring that the lessons within would not be diluted or misused. Some of these texts allegedly described hidden networks of influence, methods of maintaining authority, and philosophical systems that allowed select individuals to manipulate social and political outcomes from behind the scenes. What unites these civilizations is a recurring pattern. Knowledge was always curated, often hidden, and never evenly distributed. The general population participated in daily life, unaware of the unseen structures shaping their world. Leaders wielded public authority, but the true power often resided with those who controlled information, rituals, and the interpretation of events. Forbidden scrolls may have been one of the tools through which these hidden hierarchies exercised influence, encoding instructions, records, or predictions meant only for those capable of understanding and acting upon them. The symbolic language of ancient texts often served a dual purpose, preserving knowledge and concealing it. Obscure pictographs, ritual instructions, and arcane notations could only be deciphered by trained initiates. For the rest, these writings appeared as religious or historical documents, masking the more practical or political lessons embedded within. Some scholars believe that hidden codes, embedded in seemingly mundane inscriptions, reveal connections between rulers, priesthoods, and other elite classes across centuries. These codes may also serve as evidence that ancient societies understood a form of governance that integrated metaphysics, astronomy, and social control, a synthesis lost or suppressed in modern understanding. Archaeological evidence supports this theory of hidden hierarchies. Consider the construction of monumental architecture. The precision of pyramids, ziggurats, and temples required not only advanced engineering knowledge, but also a workforce carefully managed by administrators with access to privileged information. Artifacts such as ceremonial objects, ritual implements, and coded inscriptions suggest that those in power relied on symbolic authority as much as brute force. The forbidden scrolls, if they existed, may have codified the principles that allowed these elites to maintain control, offering instructions for governance, the preservation of social order, and the consolidation of power across generations. Even in regions where written records are scarce, oral traditions hint at the presence of hidden rulers and secret councils. Stories passed down through generations often contain allegorical references to unseen forces, clandestine alliances, and knowledge withheld from the common people. In some cases, these oral histories survived long after the written records were lost, preserving fragments of forbidden wisdom that reveal the extent to which ancient elites understood and manipulated the structures of society. The study of these hidden hierarchies is not merely an academic exercise. It challenges our assumptions about the origins of power and the nature of human governance. By examining the remnants of forbidden scrolls, codices, and encoded inscriptions, we glimpse a world where knowledge equated to authority, and those who possessed it could shape the destinies of civilizations without ever appearing in a historical record. These patterns of control, hidden in plain sight, may continue to resonate in the present, influencing how power is exercised even in modern societies. As we move forward in our exploration, the ancient world serves as both a foundation and a warning. Power has always been concentrated, knowledge carefully curated, and forbidden truths jealously guarded. The scrolls that survived, or at least left traces of themselves, offer a window into these hidden hierarchies, a glimpse of the invisible hands that have, for millennia, shaped human history from behind the scenes. Understanding these origins is the first step toward unraveling the deeper secrets concealed within the forbidden scrolls, and toward following the thread of hidden rulers that stretches across time and geography. Hidden within the annals of history are texts that appear almost supernatural in their foresight. Across continents and centuries, certain scrolls were said to predict events with a precision that defied the ordinary understanding of time and cause. They chronicled the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of dynasties, and even disasters that would alter the course of civilizations. To skeptics, these are merely coincidences, the product of cryptic symbolism and interpretive imagination. To those who study forbidden scrolls, however, they hint at knowledge far beyond what is commonly acknowledged, a hidden layer of history, carefully recorded and concealed. From the ancient Near East, fragments of Mesopotamian tablets suggest a remarkable awareness of historical cycles. While they were ostensibly written for religious or administrative purposes, certain tablets describe political upheavals, dynastic successions, and the outcomes of battles with astonishing accuracy. Scholars have debated whether these predictions were the product of rigorous observation, spiritual insight, or a form of early historical modeling known only to the ruling elite. Whatever the mechanism, the information contained within these scrolls indicates that some individuals or groups understood patterns in human society and power well enough to anticipate major events before they unfolded. Egyptian texts offer similarly compelling examples. Beyond the pyramids and tombs adorned with hieroglyphs lies a complex body of writing that some researchers argue contains predictive elements. Certain prophecies describe periods of instability, foreign invasions, and a shifting of power within the Nile Valley, sometimes centuries before the event occurred. The priestly classes who maintained these records were adept at reading celestial patterns, interpreting omens, and embedding knowledge into cryptic forms. It is conceivable that these prophetic scrolls were not only spiritual in nature, but also practical tools for governance, enabling rulers and their advisors to anticipate threats and manipulate outcomes to their advantage. In Europe, medieval manuscripts contain references to prophecies regarding kings, kingdoms, and conflicts that shaped the continent. Often written in allegorical language, these scrolls were circulated in secret among select audiences. Some predicted the fall of monarchs, the rise of new dynasties, and the outcomes of wars with eerie precision. The cryptic phrasing ensured that the content could be interpreted only by those trained to understand its layered meanings, preserving secrecy while offering guidance to those in power. It is no coincidence that many of these manuscripts were banned, burned, or hidden. Their contents threatened to expose not just historical events, but the hidden networks of influence behind them. Even the Far East holds examples of prophetic writing. Chinese imperial archives contain texts and divinatory records that forecast political shifts, natural disasters, and social upheavals. These scrolls, often preserved in sealed chambers or limited to court advisors, demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of cyclical patterns in governance and human behavior. Similarly, in India, tantric and astrological manuscripts were sometimes encoded to protect their insights, predicting outcomes based on complex combinations of cosmic, environmental, and social factors. Across continents, the pattern emerges. Knowledge of potential futures was never intended for the masses. It was carefully guarded, encoded, and selectively disseminated, reinforcing the notion that power and foresight were intertwined. The mechanics of prophecy in forbidden scrolls often blend observation with the mystical. Celestial movements, seasonal cycles, and social trends were combined with ritual knowledge to generate predictions. In some cases, these methods appear almost scientific, a systematic attempt to identify patterns and anticipate outcomes. In others, they verge on the arcane, drawing upon spiritual or metaphysical principles that defy conventional explanation. This duality, the mixture of empirical observation and esoteric insight, made the scrolls simultaneously practical and dangerous, offering those with understanding a considerable advantage over their contemporaries. It is essential to recognize that the predictive power of these scrolls was not neutral. Knowledge of the future could be weaponized. Elites could plan military campaigns, manipulate political alliances, and maintain control over populations through subtle foresight. The scrolls were more than historical curiosities. They were instruments of influence, enabling those who possessed them to act with near-perfect knowledge of potential consequences. To the public, these events appeared random or divinely ordained. To the guardians of forbidden knowledge, they were calculated, guided, and in some cases, orchestrated. The danger of prophetic scrolls lies not only in their accuracy, but in the secrecy surrounding them. If knowledge of future events falls into the wrong hands, it could destabilize societies or undermine those in power. This is why many such scrolls were hidden, fragmented, or encoded. Some were destroyed during periods of political upheaval, religious reform, or conquest, while others survived only through clandestine preservation. The scattered remnants that remain today are tantalizing clues, whispers of knowledge that once shaped the destinies of nations. Modern historians and occult scholars alike are drawn to these scrolls not merely for their historical content, but for the insight they provide into the hidden rulers of the past. Each prophetic text is a map, guiding us toward an understanding of who controlled information, how they used it, and the lengths to which they would go to preserve their secrets. By piecing together fragments from disparate cultures, researchers can begin to discern a pattern, a continuous thread of knowledge and power that extends across centuries and continents, suggesting that the rise and fall of empires may have been guided, at least in part, by those who understood the future before it arrived. As we delve deeper into the world of forbidden scrolls, one thing becomes clear: prophecy was never merely an abstract exercise. It was a tool, a weapon, and a guide. The scrolls that recorded these predictions were carefully guarded, encoded, and selectively shared, revealing a hidden layer of history where foresight equaled power, and knowledge of the future was a closely held secret. The forbidden scrolls remind us that what we perceive as history may only be the surface layer, while a hidden hand, guided by foresight and ancient wisdom, shaped the events that define civilizations. Throughout history, power has rarely been as visible as we are led to believe. While kings, emperors, and rulers sit on thrones adorned with gold and jewels, a far more subtle form of authority often lies beneath the surface, a web of bloodlines that transcends titles, kingdoms, and centuries. These invisible thrones are occupied not by those celebrated in history books, but by families and dynasties whose influence has quietly steered the course of civilizations. Forbidden scrolls and secret manuscripts frequently reference these lineages, hinting at alliances, agreements, and conspiracies that remain hidden from public view. The concept of bloodlines as conduits of hidden power is ancient. In Mesopotamia, for example, rulers often claimed divine ancestry, not merely to justify their reign, but to assert a continuity of influence that transcended ordinary succession. Certain families held sacred knowledge, passed down through generations, granting them control over temples, archives, and administrative networks. These privileges ensured that while the public saw only the ceremonial faces of authority, the true wielders of power remained invisible, operating through networks of loyalty, secrecy, and inherited wisdom. Egyptian dynasties provide one of the clearest examples of bloodline-based influence. Pharaohs, outwardly omnipotent and divine, relied heavily on families and priestly councils whose influence was subtle but immense. Some priestly families controlled the knowledge of astronomy, rituals, and sacred texts, allowing them to shape decisions, plan ceremonies, and even influence political outcomes. The notion that power was centralized entirely in the pharaoh's hands is misleading. Hidden lineages operated behind a visible hierarchy, ensuring continuity of influence across centuries. Some scholars suggest that forbidden scrolls may have been tools of these families, documenting both strategy and secrets intended only for those initiated into the bloodline's trust. In Europe, the story repeats itself with a different texture. Noble houses and dynasties often intermarried strategically, creating a web of influence that extended far beyond the borders of any single kingdom. Royal bloodlines were preserved not just for inheritance, but for the transmission of knowledge, alliances, and privilege. Some forbidden manuscripts hint at covert councils composed of these families, whose decisions could determine the fate of nations without public scrutiny. Wars, treaties, and revolutions may have been shaped as much by these invisible powers as by the monarchs publicly in charge. Asia, too, demonstrates the significance of hidden lineages. In imperial China, certain families maintained influence across dynastic transitions, often through advisory roles, ritual stewardship, or custodianship of secret texts. In India, priestly castes and noble families preserved esoteric knowledge, from governance and law to spiritual practices, passing it down through generations in secrecy. In both cases, the preservation of knowledge equated to the preservation of power. Forbidden scrolls, codices, and oral traditions functioned as repositories of authority, ensuring that certain lineages remained dominant even when visible rulers changed. The nature of these bloodlines was not merely hereditary. It was carefully curated. Marriages were arranged not just for love or politics, but for the consolidation of knowledge and influence. Families would seek partners who could contribute secret wisdom, strategic alliances, or access to forbidden texts. In some cases, these unions created networks so interlinked that influence stretched across continents, connecting rulers, councils, and elites in a web invisible to ordinary observers. Modern genealogical studies hint at the persistence of these networks, revealing connections between families across centuries that were not merely coincidental but orchestrated with remarkable foresight. Forbidden scrolls often encode the mechanisms through which these bloodlines maintain control. Symbols, allegories, and instructions within these texts suggest strategies for consolidating power, controlling religious authority, preserving secret knowledge, managing information, and influencing public perception. Some scrolls even reference the idea of destiny or fate, implying that certain families were predestined to guide human events. Whether taken literally or metaphorically, these instructions reveal a deliberate strategy. Power is most secure when it is inherited, concealed, and selectively transmitted. The invisible throne is also a tool of manipulation. By controlling information and shaping perception, bloodlines ensured that the broader population remained unaware of who truly wielded authority. Historical records often emphasize the actions of kings and emperors while minimizing the influence of advisors, priestly families, and secret councils. Yet subtle references in architecture, art, and surviving manuscripts reveal a consistent pattern. The visible ruler is often a figurehead, while the true decision-makers operate from shadows. forbidden scrolls, meticulously preserved, with a manual for this covert governance, guiding each generation of elites in the delicate art of invisible control. The danger of these hidden lineages lies not just in their secrecy, but in their continuity. Unlike transient rulers, these families could endure, adapt, and manipulate successive generations. Revolutions, wars, and political upheavals often altered the visible landscape of power, but the underlying networks persisted. This continuity may explain why certain families remain influential today, their reach extending far beyond titles, elections, or public office. Scholars studying forbidden scrolls speculate that the instructions within these texts were designed to ensure this very endurance, teaching methods for maintaining authority, influencing society, and safeguarding secrets across centuries. Legends surrounding these bloodlines often mix historical fact with myth, blending stories of rulers with tales of mystical power. Some accounts suggest that certain families possessed knowledge of the cosmos, hidden sciences, or esoteric rituals that granted them extraordinary abilities. Others claim that alliances formed in secrecy ensured that their influence would outlast temporal reigns, binding them to the very fate of civilizations. While modern skepticism often dismisses such claims, the consistency of these legends across cultures suggests a kernel of truth. Influence, whether visible or hidden, is carefully preserved through lineage and secrecy. As we trace the paths of forbidden scrolls and the hidden rulers they reveal, it becomes clear that understanding bloodlines is essential. Power is rarely concentrated in a single individual. It is preserved, transmitted, and hidden within networks that extend across generations. These families, custodians of knowledge and strategy, occupy the invisible throne, shaping history through subtle influence rather than overt domination. The scrolls they created and protected are not mere curiosities. They are guides, maps, and records of control, revealing a world where inheritance, secrecy, and foresight combine to create enduring authority. The study of bloodlines illuminates the hidden architecture of power, showing us that what appears on the surface, kings, empires, and revolutions, is only part of the story. Beneath this visible history lies a complex network of families, advisors, and guardians of knowledge, orchestrating events, preserving secrets, and ensuring that the invisible throne remains occupied. By examining forbidden scrolls, we gain insight not only into the strategies of the past, but into the enduring nature of hidden influence and the quiet hands that have guided human civilization for millennia. Throughout history, knowledge has often been treated as a dangerous substance, capable of corrupting, enlightening, or overthrowing the established order. The most provocative and threatening ideas rarely survived in plain sight. They were hidden, burned, or reinterpreted to obscure their original meaning. Forbidden books and censored texts are the footprints of this struggle, remnants of wisdom deemed too powerful, too radical, or too destabilizing for public consumption. These documents, whether lost entirely or surviving in fragments, serve as a testament to the lengths authorities have gone to control human understanding and, by extension, human behavior. The act of banning a text is itself a declaration. What is written is dangerous. Across Europe, during the medieval and Renaissance periods, the Catholic Church maintained a vast catalog of forbidden books, the infamous Index Librorum Prohibitorum. Texts by scientists, philosophers, and mystics were condemned, sometimes for challenging doctrinal orthodoxy, other times for revealing truths that might undermine the social or political hierarchy. Figures like Galileo, Giordano Bruno, and others faced persecution not only for their ideas, but for the threat those ideas posed to the accepted narrative. The books themselves, often meticulously copied and circulated clandestinely, became objects of obsession and fear, their survival contingent upon secrecy and loyalty. Yet censorship was not solely a religious endeavor. Political authorities also recognized the power of information. In kingdoms across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, texts that questioned leadership, exposed hidden alliances, or revealed the mechanisms of influence were suppressed. Forbidden knowledge extended beyond mere philosophy or science. It encompassed history, prophecy, governance, and even practical instruction in strategy and diplomacy. To control what the populace, and even rival elites, could know was to control reality itself. The forbidden scrolls we study may have emerged from this very tension between revelation and suppression. The allure of banned texts lies in their very obscurity. The Voynich manuscript, for example, remains a symbol of cryptic knowledge, its origins, purpose, and meaning still debated. Some believe it contains hidden insights into science, medicine, or even magical practices, encoded in a script no one has fully deciphered. Similarly, Gnostic Gospels, alchemical treatises, and mystical manuscripts were often hidden or destroyed because they challenged the dominant worldview. Across cultures, these texts hint at a consistent truth. Powerful knowledge was never intended to be universally accessible. Only those trained, initiated, or deemed worthy could engage with it safely. Suppression often took violent or extreme forms. Libraries were burned, entire archives were lost to conquest or disaster, and scholars were executed for preserving or transmitting dangerous ideas. In some cases, the act of suppression itself amplified the perceived power of the text. A book burned in public, a scroll confiscated by authorities, or a manuscript deliberately hidden became more than information. It became a symbol of forbidden truth, a whisper of a reality that official narratives could not acknowledge. Over time, these acts created an aura of mystery around the knowledge, fueling speculation and the desire to uncover what had been concealed. Forbidden texts often survive in the margins, embedded in otherwise innocuous works. References, citations, and quotations preserved fragments of banned knowledge, allowing modern researchers to reconstruct portions of lost works. In some cases, codices were split into multiple volumes, hidden in monasteries, or encrypted in ciphers known only to initiates. Across civilizations, from the libraries of Alexandria to secret monastic archives in Tibet, the survival of these texts depended upon cunning, dedication, and secrecy. Every fragment that remains is a whisper from the past, a clue to a broader tapestry of knowledge once deliberately obscured. The content of these censored works is as diverse as it is profound. Some contain philosophical insights that challenge the nature of reality, morality, and governance. Others reveal esoteric sciences, alchemical procedures, or spiritual practices designed to enhance human perception and understanding. Some scrolls purport to reveal the machinations of hidden rulers, secret councils, or bloodlines that have guided the fate of nations. In each case, the knowledge threatens the dominant narrative, whether by undermining authority, exposing manipulation, or offering ordinary people tools to understand and potentially resist the structures controlling them. One of the most fascinating aspects of forbidden knowledge is its resilience. Even when texts were banned, suppressed, or destroyed, the information often found a way to survive. Scholars and guardians of knowledge would memorize content, reproduce copies in secret, or encode messages within seemingly harmless works. Oral traditions preserved fragments, passing them down from teacher to disciple over generations. In this way, forbidden knowledge did not vanish entirely. It merely became concealed, waiting for the right eyes, the right mind, and the right time to rediscover it. The study of banned books and censored texts also illuminates the psychology of control. Societies that attempt to regulate knowledge often do so out of fear of rebellion, fear of change, fear of truths that could undermine authority. Forbidden scrolls, by contrast, represent the opposite: the audacity to preserve, the courage to record, and the strategic intelligence to protect wisdom from those who would suppress it. They are both historical artifacts and philosophical statements, asserting that knowledge, once conceived, cannot be entirely destroyed, no matter how powerful the forces arrayed against it. As we examine these texts and scrolls, a pattern emerges. The most dangerous ideas, those that reveal hidden hierarchies, prophetic insights, or esoteric strategies are precisely the ones most likely to be suppressed. Yet their survival, however fragmentary, offers a window into the world of the hidden rulers, the secret councils, and the invisible hands that shaped the course of history. Every marginal note, every surviving codex, every encrypted symbol is evidence of a battle over understanding, a silent struggle between secrecy and revelation that has played out across civilizations for millennia. Forbidden knowledge reminds us that history is not always what it seems. Beneath the surface of official accounts, buried in censored manuscripts, and encrypted in mystical scrolls, lies a hidden network of information, preserved and protected by those who understood its power. To study these texts is to peer behind the veil, to glimpse the strategies, intentions, and wisdom of those who ruled from the shadows. And in doing so, we begin to understand that knowledge itself, carefully guarded, deliberately concealed, has always been one of the most potent instruments of control in human history. Among the most captivating revelations of Forbidden Scrolls are the references to hidden cities, metropolises concealed from the common eye, often buried beneath sands, forests, or mountains, yet thriving as centers of power, knowledge, and influence. These cities were not simply urban settlements. They were carefully orchestrated hubs where secret rulers, scholars, and guardians of wisdom converged. Their purpose extended far beyond trade or governance. They were laboratories of strategy, ritual, and culture designed to preserve and transmit knowledge that mainstream history would later attempt to erase or obscure. The scrolls frequently describe these cities as architectural marvels, built with a precision and sophistication that modern explorers often struggle to comprehend. Complex water systems, fortified walls, and intricate road networks suggest advanced engineering and meticulous planning. Yet, what sets them apart is not only their physical ingenuity, but the deliberate secrecy surrounding them. Some cities were hidden underground, accessible only through labyrinthine tunnels or concealed passages. Others were located in remote mountain valleys or dense forests, shielded by natural barriers and deliberate misdirection. The architects of these hidden cities understood that concealment was as crucial as construction. The survival of knowledge and power depended on it. Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley civilizations provide early examples. Scrolls reference cities whose ruins are only partially visible today, suggesting centers of administration, learning, and spiritual practice that were deliberately erased or forgotten. These cities were hubs where priests, mathematicians, and astronomers collaborated to guide rulers and predict the movements of celestial bodies. The scrolls indicate that hidden metropolises functioned as laboratories of foresight. Their inhabitants collected data, observed cycles, and recorded phenomena that would inform governance, ritual, and strategic decisions for generations. Egyptian texts speak of cities that combined political authority with spiritual function. High priests, scribes, and select nobility operated within these hidden centers, preserving sacred texts and ritual knowledge. Architectural alignments with stars, solstices, and river courses suggest a sophisticated understanding of both astronomy and geography. Beyond their symbolic function, these cities served as operational bases for maintaining control over surrounding regions. Knowledge, ritual, and governance converged within their walls, creating a continuity of influence that extended far beyond the visible empire. In South America, the legend of lost cities such as Paititi or Vilcabamba echoes the scroll's accounts. These cities, often cloaked in myth, are said to have served as refuges for priests, rulers, and guardians of sacred knowledge during times of conquest or upheaval. Archaeological evidence, though limited, suggests that many settlements in the Andes and Amazon basin were not only defensive but designed for secrecy, with hidden chambers, complex tunnels, and strategically placed natural barriers. Forbidden scrolls imply that these cities were repositories of advanced knowledge, astronomical, agricultural, and spiritual, that was deliberately protected from outsiders. The role of hidden cities was not purely defensive. They were also centers of innovation. Within their walls, scholars experimented with architecture, engineering, mathematics, and ritual. Artifacts recovered from partially excavated sites indicate an extraordinary understanding of geometry, astronomy, and urban planning. The scrolls suggest that these innovations were closely guarded, shared only with those initiated into the inner circles of power. The cities were living academies of strategic and mystical knowledge, where theory was practiced, recorded, and preserved for the benefit of successive generations of hidden rulers. Europe also preserves traces of concealed centers of influence. During the medieval period, monastic complexes, fortified abbeys, and secretive enclaves functioned as hubs of scholarship, prophecy, and esoteric study. Many of these sites were deliberately obscured, often protected by codes, tunnels, and symbolic architecture. Forbidden scrolls indicate that they were not merely religious centers. They were operational headquarters where decisions affecting kingdoms, trade routes, and political alliances were formulated in secrecy. The overlap of ritual, education, and strategy within these hidden centers ensured that knowledge was concentrated and preserved across generations. In Asia, cities and monastic complexes similarly served as repositories of knowledge. Tibetan monasteries, often perched in inaccessible mountains, housed manuscripts, ritual implements, and trained guardians who maintained the continuity of spiritual, scientific, and political wisdom. Indian tantric centers preserved texts and practices that combined philosophical, strategic, and mystical insight. These hidden cities were deliberately integrated with their natural surroundings, providing both protection and a form of symbolic alignment with cosmic principles. They represent a recurring theme in Forbidden Scrolls. Civilization's true centers of power are not always those visible to the masses, but those carefully concealed, cultivated, and guarded. The scrolls repeatedly emphasize that hidden cities functioned as both sanctuaries and laboratories. They provided protection from external threats, invaders, rival factions, or social upheaval, while simultaneously fostering innovation, spiritual advancement, and strategic planning. Within these walls, knowledge was transmitted through ritual, encoded texts, and apprenticeships, ensuring that wisdom could survive even if empires fell or public records were destroyed. In many ways, these cities were the neural networks of hidden rulers, linking foresight, strategy, and spiritual insight into a cohesive operational framework. Another fascinating aspect revealed by the scrolls is the interconnectivity of hidden cities. Some scrolls describe networks of secret metropolises linked by trade, communication, and shared knowledge. Guardians and emissaries travel between them, transmitting texts, rituals, and innovations. This interconnection ensured redundancy. If one city fell, the knowledge it housed could be preserved elsewhere. The scrolls suggest a deliberate strategy of decentralization paired with secrecy, where continuity of wisdom was prioritized over any single center of authority. This networked approach allowed hidden rulers to maintain influence even as political landscapes shifted, empires collapsed, and civilizations faced natural or human-made disasters. The psychological and cultural impact of hidden cities was equally significant. By cultivating centers of learning, ritual, and governance beyond the reach of ordinary populations, hidden rulers reinforced the mystique of authority. Ordinary citizens saw only the visible power structures, emperors, kings, or councils, but the real architects of society operated invisibly. This duality of perception served to maintain order, reinforce hierarchy, and preserve the concentrated knowledge that was essential to strategic governance. The cities themselves became symbols of stability, wisdom, and unseen influence, their very concealment a testament to the careful orchestration of power. Finally, the legacy of hidden cities extends to the present. Archaeological discoveries, lost manuscripts, and oral traditions continue to hint at the existence of these secret centers of power. Their remnants suggest that civilization has always been guided not only by visible rulers and institutions, but by invisible networks of knowledge, guardianship, and strategic foresight. Forbidden scrolls challenge us to consider what remains hidden beneath the surface of modern society. The centers of influence, the repositories of wisdom, and the invisible architecture that continues to shape our world. In essence, hidden cities reveal a truth central to all forbidden scrolls. The preservation and application of knowledge requires secrecy, strategy, and vision. The architects of these cities understood that power is not merely about visibility or force, but about the ability to cultivate, protect, and transmit wisdom over time. They remind us that civilization's greatest achievements often emerge from hidden networks, guided by those who operate in the shadows, unseen yet profoundly influential. Behind the visible structures of power, across centuries and continents, secret societies have operated in the shadows, shaping events, influencing rulers, and safeguarding forbidden knowledge. These societies are often portrayed in popular culture as mysterious or even sinister, yet their true function appears far more strategic and methodical. They are the architects of control, preserving knowledge, guiding decisions, and ensuring that power remains concentrated within select hands. Many forbidden scrolls make reference to these groups, hinting at intricate networks that transcend borders, religions, and empires. The origins of secret societies can be traced to antiquity, from the enigmatic priesthoods of Egypt to the hidden councils of Mesopotamia. Early groups formed around shared knowledge, spiritual insight, or strategic expertise. Their members were often initiates, carefully selected for intelligence, loyalty, and discretion. Knowledge was currency, and secrecy was its safeguard. Scrolls, codices, and symbolic texts often served as both instruction manuals and oaths of membership, ensuring that only the worthy could access the most potent information. By controlling who knew what, these societies effectively controlled outcomes, shaping the trajectory of civilizations from behind the scenes. In Europe, medieval and Renaissance secret societies played an especially influential role. The Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and other esoteric orders combined ritual, philosophy, and clandestine governance, operating as conduits for forbidden knowledge. These societies often intersected with royal courts, universities, and religious institutions, providing counsel and influence in ways unseen by the general populace. Their hidden rituals, cryptic symbols, and encoded manuscripts ensured that their wisdom and their power remained secure, accessible only to those initiated into their ranks. Secret societies often acted as guardians, but they also functioned as architects. By selectively revealing information to rulers or influencing key decisions, they shaped events to maintain stability, control succession, or preserve knowledge. The manipulation was subtle. Wars were not always fought on battlefields, but through information, alliances, and the orchestration of perception. Forbidden scrolls frequently served as manuals, guiding members in strategies for influence, surveillance, and intervention, ensuring that outcomes aligned with their broader objectives. The interplay between secrecy and influence is striking. Publicly, societies appeared innocuous or ceremonial, yet behind closed doors, their members wielded remarkable power. This duality allowed them to operate for centuries without attracting undue attention. Their secrecy also created a mystique that reinforced authority. Legends and rumors about hidden councils, arcane rituals, and prophetic knowledge amplified the perceived significance of these societies, deterring scrutiny while enhancing their capacity to guide history from the shadows. Global patterns suggest that these societies were not isolated phenomena. In Asia, similar groups preserved esoteric knowledge, spanning spiritual, strategic, and administrative domains. Taoist sects, Buddhist monastic orders, and secret guilds maintained archives and teachings accessible only to the initiated. Their methods of secrecy mirrored those of European orders. Encoded texts, ritualistic instruction, and selective mentorship. Across continents, the principles were consistent. Knowledge is power, and power is preserved through discretion, discipline, and carefully maintained networks. The relationship between secret societies and forbidden scrolls is intimate. Scrolls often served as both evidence and instruction, recording history, prophecies, and strategic insights. They acted as blueprints for influence, guiding members in understanding hidden hierarchies, predicting political shifts, and navigating complex social networks. By embedding knowledge in cryptic forms, societies ensured that information could survive even in periods of upheaval, while remaining inaccessible to outsiders. The scrolls were not merely historical records. They were tools of governance, strategy, and legacy. One of the most remarkable features of these societies is their continuity. Despite wars, revolutions, and social transformations, many orders survive by adapting, merging, or operating in deeper secrecy. Initiation rituals and oaths preserved internal cohesion, while encoded texts and hidden archives safeguarded the knowledge that allowed them to influence successive generations. Forbidden scrolls, scattered across continents and centuries, are often the only surviving testimony of these enduring networks, revealing a hidden continuity of strategy and authority that textbooks rarely acknowledge. The implications are profound. Understanding secret societies sheds light on the invisible mechanisms of history, the networks that operated quietly behind thrones, parliaments, and courts. By examining forbidden scrolls alongside the rituals, symbols, and documented actions of these societies, we glimpse a reality in which power is curated, knowledge is controlled, and history is guided by those who understand both. They were not merely observers of history. They were its architects, preserving continuity, influencing rulers, and safeguarding secrets across centuries. As we continue our journey into the hidden world of forbidden scrolls, one principle emerges. Knowledge is only dangerous if it is uncontrolled. Secret societies ensured that power remained concentrated, wisdom preserved, and outcomes guided. The scrolls they protected were not passive documents. They were active instruments, encoded with strategies for influence, records of hidden rulers, and warnings for future generations. Through their stewardship, the invisible hands of history become discernible, revealing a world where secrecy, strategy, and knowledge converge to shape the fate of civilizations. Throughout history, power has often been tangible. Beyond titles, armies, and wealth, objects, artifacts imbued with symbolism, knowledge, or strategic significance have silently guided the course of human events. From ancient relics to ceremonial instruments, these items were more than mere possessions. They were repositories of knowledge, tools of influence, and, in some cases, keys to secrets deliberately concealed from the general population. The Forbidden Scrolls often make reference to such artifacts, revealing that the guardians of knowledge understood that wisdom could be encoded not only in words, but in material objects. In ancient Egypt, for example, ceremonial objects were far more than decorative or religious. They were instruments of power. Crowns, scepters, and ritual implements often contained encoded knowledge about governance, spiritual hierarchy, and cosmic order. Priests and ruling elites were trained to interpret these symbols, granting them insights unavailable to ordinary citizens. Certain objects, like the crook and flail of the pharaoh, were more than symbols of authority. They represented access to esoteric wisdom, a code linking divine right with human governance. Forbidden scrolls likely documented the rituals and instructions for using such objects, preserving knowledge across generations while ensuring that misuse remained impossible for the uninitiated. In Mesopotamia, artifacts such as cylinder seals, tablets, and ceremonial implements served dual purposes, recording transactions and encoding sacred or strategic knowledge. Some seals contained cuneiform inscriptions that detailed not only economic dealings, but the genealogies of influential families and their connections to hidden councils. Such artifacts were carefully guarded, passed down within trusted lineages, or embedded within structures to ensure their survival. For the uninitiated, they appeared mundane, yet to those trained to read them, they were treasure troves of guidance, instruction, and influence. The concept of artifacts as carriers of hidden knowledge extends to Europe as well. Alchemical tools, esoteric manuscripts bound in ornate covers, and ritual objects used by secret societies often encoded instructions for spiritual, scientific, or political practices. The Philosopher's Stone, for instance, is widely mythologized, but historical records suggest that alchemical instruments served as practical tools for experimentation, recording processes that blended chemistry, metaphysics, and strategy. Forbidden scrolls frequently reference these objects, hinting that knowledge could be safeguarded not only in text, but through physical means, locked cabinets, hidden compartments, or cryptic engravings on ceremonial tools. In Asia, artifacts similarly acted as vessels of concealed wisdom. In China, jade carvings, ritual bronze vessels, and imperial seals carried layers of symbolic and practical meaning. These items often contained encoded guidance for governance, divination, and spiritual practice. In India, talismans, ritual implements, and intricately inscribed objects serve as conduits for esoteric knowledge, accessible only to trained priests or initiates. In all cases, the artifact was a tangible extension of authority, a physical manifestation of knowledge that could not be destroyed, easily replicated, or misused by the uninitiated. Some artifacts transcend cultural and geographic boundaries, hinting at a global practice of concealing knowledge in material form. Consider relics with inscriptions in unknown or coded scripts, objects buried with rulers, or ceremonial instruments designed for secretive rituals. Archaeologists and historians often struggle to interpret these items because the true context has been lost or deliberately obscured. Forbidden scrolls, however, suggest that many of these artifacts were designed intentionally to preserve and transmit knowledge, often in combination with texts, symbols, or oral instruction. They were not mere curiosities. They were tools of influence, designed to guide, protect, and control. The danger inherent in artifacts of power lies in their potential misuse. Just as knowledge in scrolls could destabilize societies, objects imbued with encoded wisdom could alter events if wielded without understanding. Guardians of forbidden knowledge recognize this, implementing strict protocols for handling, transferring, and interpreting these items. Rituals, oaths, and selective access ensure that artifacts remain both secure and effective. This dual purpose, preservation and restriction, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of the interplay between material objects and human behavior. Artifacts also serve as bridges between generations. They carry knowledge forward, often surviving political upheavals, wars, and societal collapse. Unlike texts, which can be destroyed or censored, physical objects endure, sometimes hidden for centuries before being rediscovered. Forbidden scrolls frequently reference these items, emphasizing their role as long-term vessels of influence. By studying artifacts alongside textual records, modern researchers can reconstruct networks of hidden knowledge, revealing the invisible threads of power that span continents and centuries. In some cases, the connection between scrolls and artifacts is startlingly precise. A ritual described in a scroll may correspond exactly to the inscriptions on a ceremonial object. A coded map in a manuscript may find its counterpart in an engraved instrument, where the artifact functions as a key to understanding or activating the knowledge. These intersections suggest deliberate design. Guardians of knowledge understood that power was most secure when encoded in multiple forms, accessible only to those with the training, insight, and authority to interpret correctly. Ultimately, artifacts of power remind us that knowledge and influence are not always abstract concepts. They can be tangible, tactile, and deeply embedded in human culture. Forbidden scrolls, in documenting and referencing these objects, provide a glimpse into a hidden dimension of control, a world where wisdom is preserved in both words and matter, where authority is tangible, and where understanding the material culture of the past reveals the invisible hands that have shaped history. Through these objects, the hidden rulers speak across time, leaving traces of a power that is as much physical as it is intellectual, as much strategic as it is mystical. The Forbidden Scrolls often speak of places that defy modern geography, cities and civilizations that vanish from history as mysteriously as they appeared. These lost cities are not merely archaeological curiosities. They are waypoints in a hidden network of power, repositories of knowledge, and centers where secrets were preserved and protected. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Central America, these urban enigmas offer clues about how ancient rulers maintained influence, concealed knowledge, and orchestrated events on a scale far beyond what is recorded in conventional history. Consider the legendary city of Atlantis, described in texts dating back to Plato. While often dismissed as myth, Atlantis represents a recurring theme in forbidden manuscripts, a civilization whose achievements, knowledge, and governance were deliberately erased from mainstream history. The scrolls suggest that such cities were hubs of advanced understanding, astronomy, mathematics, architecture, and spiritual insight that far surpassed the contemporary norms of the surrounding world. Their disappearance from public consciousness may have been deliberate, a mechanism of control to prevent powerful knowledge from falling into uninitiated hands. In South America, the remnants of civilizations like the Inca and Maya reveal a similar pattern. Temples, observatories, and pyramids hint at advanced knowledge of astronomy, agriculture, and social organization. Codices that survived conquest reference sacred sites, hidden archives, and powerful artifacts. Some scrolls suggest that entire settlements were intentionally concealed or destroyed to safeguard esoteric knowledge from invaders, ensuring that only those initiated into secret networks could access the wisdom contained within. These hidden civilizations acted as both guardians and transmitters of forbidden knowledge, preserving information that shaped not only local societies, but broader human understanding. Africa, too, holds mysteries of hidden power. The ancient city of Timbuktu, with its libraries of manuscripts, was a center of learning and trade whose full extent remains underappreciated. Scrolls describe vast collections of texts, scientific, philosophical, spiritual, carefully protected by scholars and clerics. In other regions, oral histories reference vanished cities, underground chambers, and sacred complexes that preserve knowledge and maintain networks of influence. Such lost cities exemplify the recurring theme in Forbidden Scrolls, that power is often tied not to a visible throne, but to hidden spaces where wisdom, resources, and strategic authority converge. Asia provides further evidence of hidden civilizations. In the Himalayas, remote monasteries and concealed settlements have long been associated with esoteric knowledge, mystical practices, and advanced understanding of natural phenomena. Some scrolls reference entire communities dedicated to preserving forbidden texts, secret rituals, and hidden technologies. The deliberate isolation of these communities ensured that knowledge could be transmitted without interference, creating invisible nodes of authority and understanding that impacted societies far beyond their geographic boundaries. The existence of lost cities raises questions about the preservation and transmission of knowledge. Why were these civilizations hidden, abandoned, or destroyed? Forbidden Scrolls suggest deliberate concealment as a strategy. Knowledge in the wrong hands could destabilize rulers, challenge hierarchies, or disrupt social order. By controlling access to these urban centers, hidden elites ensured that wisdom was preserved, utilized, and transmitted only according to their designs. In this context, the disappearance of a city is not merely a historical tragedy, but a calculated act of control, preserving secrets that could shape the fate of empires. Archaeological findings often align with these narratives. Submerged ruins, hidden tunnels, and buried archives indicate that some lost cities were more than abandoned settlements. They were deliberate repositories of strategic, spiritual, and practical knowledge. Scrolls sometimes describe precise locations, encoded instructions for accessing archives, or rituals necessary to unlock concealed chambers. These records suggest that the hidden civilizations were not passive. They were active centers of governance, ritual, and knowledge preservation, designed to outlast ordinary political structures. The implications of these lost cities are profound. They challenge the linear narratives of history, suggesting that civilizations rise and fall not only due to war, famine, or migration, but also because of deliberate management of knowledge. Hidden cities served as control points, archives of wisdom, and centers where powerful elites could orchestrate events without public interference. By studying these places alongside forbidden scrolls, modern researchers can trace the invisible architecture of power, revealing networks of influence, preservation, and strategy that have endured across centuries. Moreover, lost cities underscore the interplay between secrecy, geography, and authority. Physical isolation, whether through deserts, jungles, mountains, or oceans, ensured security and discretion. Hidden cities often coincided with sacred sites, trade hubs, or strategic locations, blending practical governance with ritual and symbolism. The Forbidden Scrolls indicate that location was not arbitrary. It was a deliberate choice to maximize control, safeguard knowledge, and ensure that power remained in the hands of those who understood both the visible and hidden dimensions of civilization. As we trace the paths described in Forbidden Scrolls, lost cities emerge as more than historical curiosities. They are evidence of an invisible network of knowledge and authority. They reveal that power is not always obvious, that wisdom is carefully curated, and that civilizations may vanish from common awareness while their influence persists in subtle, enduring ways. By understanding these hidden urban centers, we glimpse a world where rulers, scholars, and initiates collaborated across generations to preserve, protect, and manipulate knowledge. A world where the invisible hands of history orchestrated events from the shadows, leaving traces only for those willing to look beyond the surface. Among the most enigmatic of all Forbidden Scrolls are those that claim to foresee the future. These prophetic documents, found across continents and spanning millennia, are more than mere speculation. They purport to reveal events before they occurred, often with a precision that challenges conventional understanding of time, causality, and human knowledge. To the uninitiated, these texts may seem mystical or allegorical. To those who study them carefully, however, they offered guidance, influence, and even the power to shape history. In Mesopotamia, prophetic tablets combined ritual observation with meticulous record-keeping, predicting political upheavals, dynastic changes, and natural disasters. These texts were not intended for public consumption. Their messages were often encrypted in symbolic language, accessible only to priests or royal advisors trained to interpret them. Some scholars argue that these prophecies were based on sophisticated patterns of observation, a form of early statistical or cyclical modeling. Others suggest they were inspired by spiritual insight, a belief that events follow a divine or cosmic order. Whatever the source, the predictions often proved astonishingly accurate, hinting at knowledge far beyond ordinary perception. Egyptian prophetic texts similarly blend the mystical with the practical. Priests documented celestial phenomena, seasonal cycles, and omens, linking them to societal and political developments. Certain scrolls describe periods of famine, invasion, or social upheaval centuries in advance. These predictions were codified into rituals, ensuring that rulers and advisors could prepare for events that, to the masses, seemed spontaneous or inevitable. The scrolls imply that foresight was not merely theoretical. It was a tool for governance, strategy, and influence, shaping decisions at the highest levels of power. In Europe, medieval prophetic manuscripts frequently addressed kings, kingdoms, and conflicts, often cloaked in allegory or symbolic language. The writings of Nostradamus are a famous example, but similar records existed in countless monasteries and royal archives. These scrolls contained veiled warnings, strategic advice, and predictive insights that could guide decisions during times of war, succession crises, or social unrest. The cryptic nature of the texts ensured that they remained accessible only to those capable of interpretation, maintaining secrecy while allowing strategic advantage for those who could decipher the message. The Far East also boasts prophetic scrolls of immense significance. In China, records linked cosmic events to the fortunes of emperors and dynasties, blending astrology, philosophy, and political foresight. Some texts predicted shifts in power, natural disasters, or military events decades in advance. In India, tantric and astrological manuscripts used elaborate coding systems to preserve knowledge, predicting political upheavals, social changes, and even personal destinies of rulers. Across cultures, the principle is consistent. Prophecy was not passive speculation, but a means of navigating reality, guiding decisions, and preserving continuity. What makes these scrolls truly remarkable is their dual function. They served both as warnings and as instruments of control. Knowledge of future events enabled rulers and elites to act preemptively, avoiding crises, manipulating outcomes, and consolidating power. By selectively revealing predictions to those in authority, custodians of the scrolls could influence decisions without appearing to do so. The public perceived events as divinely ordained or coincidental, while the hidden rulers operated with foresight, steering history from behind a veil. The mechanisms of prophecy were often complex. Celestial observation, social analysis, and ritual practice combined to create predictive systems. In some cases, the predictive element was embedded in coded language or symbolic imagery, ensuring that only trained individuals could unlock the knowledge. This encoding was essential. If the information were misused, it could destabilize societies or empower rivals. Forbidden scrolls, therefore, functioned both as repositories of knowledge and as instruments of strategic restraint, guiding human behavior across generations. Prophetic scrolls were not without controversy. Skeptics dismissed them as coincidences or allegorical tales, while authorities sometimes sought to suppress them, fearing the destabilizing potential of foresight. In Europe, such texts were censored, burned, or hidden to prevent misuse or challenge to established authority. In other regions, custodians of prophecy guarded the scrolls jealously, transmitting knowledge orally or through encrypted manuscripts. The tension between revelation and secrecy underscores a central theme. Knowledge, especially knowledge of the future, is both dangerous and powerful. Some forbidden scrolls go beyond prediction, offering guidance on how to influence outcomes. They reveal that foresight alone was insufficient. Action, strategy, and timing were required. Certain manuscripts instructed rulers on when to wage war, negotiate alliances, or suppress dissent, using predictive insight as a tool of governance. In this sense, prophecy was intertwined with practical wisdom, blending observation, intuition, and strategic application. It was not passive fortune-telling. It was active engagement with the unfolding of events. The survival of prophetic scrolls often depended on secrecy and lineage. Only trusted individuals, often part of elite networks or secret societies, were permitted to study and apply the knowledge. In many cases, the scrolls were fragmented, encoded, or distributed across multiple locations to prevent complete comprehension by outsiders. This ensured that foresight remained a guarded advantage, accessible only to those with the training, authority, and discretion necessary to wield it responsibly. Modern scholars examining these scrolls note a recurring pattern. The most accurate prophecies often coincide with regions of concentrated knowledge and authority. Centers of learning, ritual practice, and political power were frequently repositories for prophetic texts. This correlation suggests that prophecy was a form of applied knowledge, harnessed by those with access to both information and influence. Forbidden scrolls, therefore, provide a window into a world where understanding the future was inseparable from the management of power, strategy, and control. The implications are profound. Prophetic scrolls remind us that history is not merely a sequence of random events, but may reflect patterns observed, recorded, and acted upon by those with insight. They reveal a hidden dimension of governance, where foresight equates to influence, and knowledge of the future becomes a tool to guide the present. By studying these texts, We gain not only a deeper understanding of historical events, but also a glimpse into the invisible hands shaping civilization, a testament to the enduring power of foresight, secrecy, and strategy. Forbidden scrolls, in preserving prophecy, challenge our perception of history and causality. They suggest a world where the line between fate and design is blurred, where those with knowledge could influence events before they occurred, and where the seemingly chaotic flow of human affairs was often subtly guided by hidden rulers. In this hidden dimension, the past, present, and future converge, revealing a reality where prophecy is both a mirror and a tool, illuminating the unseen networks that have steered humanity for millennia. The influence of forbidden scrolls and hidden knowledge did not vanish with the fall of empires, the collapse of dynasties, or the destruction of secret libraries. In many ways, the same principles that guided ancient rulers, secret societies, and hidden civilizations continue to shape modern power structures. Today, the invisible architectures of influence, financial networks, political alliances, corporate conglomerates, and even global intelligence agencies mirror the patterns encoded in these ancient manuscripts. Knowledge, carefully preserved and selectively revealed, remains one of the most potent tools of control. In contemporary politics, the echoes of hidden knowledge are evident in the concentration of power. Families, dynasties, and elite networks still wield disproportionate influence, often shaping policy, economic trends, and public perception from behind the scenes. The patterns are strikingly similar to those described in Forbidden Scrolls. Information is curated, access is restricted, and decisions are guided by strategic insight rather than public visibility. Whether through lobbying, think tanks, or private councils, modern rulers rely on the same mechanisms of secrecy and selective revelation that allowed ancient bloodlines to dominate history. The financial world, too, demonstrates the enduring power of concealed knowledge. Global markets, investment networks, and multinational corporations operate within layers of information that are inaccessible to the general public. Insider knowledge, strategic foresight, and the orchestration of perception can determine the success or failure of nations and industries alike. Forbidden scrolls often emphasize the importance of controlling resources and information simultaneously, and modern economic systems mirror this principle on a massive scale. The invisible manipulation of wealth, much like the hidden guidance of ancient rulers, shapes societies in ways most citizens never perceive. Technology amplifies these dynamics. In the digital age, access to information and the control of it has become a central form of power. Algorithms, surveillance systems, and data networks function as the modern equivalent of secret scrolls, preserving insight and directing outcomes for those who understand their mechanisms. Governments, corporations, and shadow networks can predict behavior, influence decisions, and manipulate perceptions, echoing the principles of foresight, secrecy, and strategy described in ancient manuscripts. Forbidden knowledge, in this sense, has evolved rather than disappeared, moving from scrolls and codices to digital archives and encrypted data streams. Even cultural and societal influence demonstrates continuity with ancient patterns. Education, media, and religious or philosophical institutions continue to serve as instruments for shaping perception, controlling narrative, and transmitting selective knowledge. Just as hidden civilizations preserved wisdom in secret cities or artifacts, modern societies curate information through curricula, news channels, and controlled narratives. The ability to shape understanding, what is known, what is believed, and what is questioned, remains one of the most powerful forms of influence. Forbidden scrolls remind us that those who control knowledge control reality, and this principle persists in contemporary society. The modern implications extend to global strategy as well. Intelligence agencies, diplomatic networks, and covert operations are modern manifestations of the secret councils and hidden rulers documented in scrolls. Decisions about conflict, alliances, and resource distribution are often informed by layers of analysis, foresight, and intelligence that remain inaccessible to the public. In essence, The mechanisms of hidden power have been refined, adapted, and scaled to fit a complex, interconnected world, yet the underlying principles remain remarkably consistent with those preserved by forbidden scrolls throughout history. Prophetic insight also carries into the modern age. Forecasting, scenario planning, and predictive modeling are contemporary tools that mirror the function of ancient prophecies. Corporations and governments rely on these techniques to anticipate crises, manipulate markets, and maintain stability. The accuracy and application of such foresight often determine who rises and who falls in the global hierarchy. Just as ancient scrolls guided rulers to shape events, modern predictive systems allow select individuals and institutions to operate with a hidden advantage, maintaining continuity of influence across generations. Perhaps most intriguing is the philosophical implication. Forbidden knowledge challenges our perception of agency. While modern societies prize transparency, democracy, and openness, much of the world's decision-making occurs behind the scenes, informed by information, strategy, and insight that the public may never access. Ancient scrolls, secret societies, and hidden civilizations all demonstrate that visibility is not the measure of power. Knowledge and its controlled application are. The modern world, in this light, is not fundamentally different from the hidden hierarchies of the past. It is merely more complex, technologically advanced, and globally interconnected. Finally, the scrolls remind us of responsibility. Knowledge, once uncovered, carries both potential and peril. In the modern context, this applies not only to governments and corporations, but also to individuals with access to critical information. How knowledge is applied, shared, or concealed continues to shape outcomes, influence societies, and determine the trajectory of human civilization. Forbidden scrolls, though ancient, offer timeless guidance. Understanding the mechanisms of power, foresight, and strategy is crucial for navigating both visible and hidden realities. By examining the lessons of forbidden scrolls and their modern echoes, we gain insight into the continuity of hidden influence. The strategies, secrets, and foresight of ancient rulers persist in contemporary society, reminding us that power is rarely absolute, rarely transparent, and always mediated through the careful control of knowledge. From the ancient priesthoods to modern elites, the principle remains unchanged. Those who understand the hidden threads of reality can guide events, shape societies, and alter the course of history without ever stepping into the spotlight. Rituals are often dismissed as mere tradition or spectacle, yet across civilizations, they have functioned as powerful instruments of influence and control. From secret societies to hidden civilizations, the Forbidden Scrolls frequently describe ceremonies designed not only to honor deities or mark the passage of time, but to consolidate knowledge, enforce hierarchy, and maintain the subtle mechanisms of power. These rituals were carefully structured, encoded with symbolic meaning, and accessible only to initiates, those deemed worthy of understanding the deeper truths embedded within. The earliest records of hidden rituals appear in the temples and courts of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Priests performed ceremonies that, on the surface, seemed religious, offerings, chants, and symbolic gestures. Yet the scrolls reveal an additional layer of function, rituals as instruments of social and political control. By linking spiritual authority with governance, these ceremonies reinforced hierarchies and ensured that knowledge remained concentrated in the hands of a select few. Participants internalized lessons not just intellectually, but experientially, embedding obedience, discipline, and secrecy into the fabric of society itself. In the classical world, Greek and Roman initiatory rituals operated on a similar principle. Mystery cults, such as the Eleusinian Mysteries, combined symbolic instruction with experiential learning, guiding initiates through stages of understanding that were both psychological and spiritual. Forbidden texts suggest that these ceremonies were not merely spiritual exercises. They were a form of governance, subtly instructing members in loyalty, hierarchy, and the exercise of influence. Through participation, Initiates absorb knowledge about social order, ethics, and hidden power structures, equipping them to operate effectively within both visible and concealed networks of authority. Medieval Europe saw the proliferation of secretive orders, many of which incorporated ritual as a central method of preserving and transmitting knowledge. The Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and other esoteric societies designed ceremonies that encoded moral, philosophical, and strategic instruction within symbolic actions. Each gesture, each recitation, was meticulously calculated to convey meaning that could not be captured fully in text. Forbidden scrolls indicate that rituals served as a safeguard. Knowledge transmitted through ceremony could endure even if manuscripts were lost, and it could be internalized in a way that fostered discipline, discretion, and strategic acumen. The function of ritual extended beyond instruction. It also enforced loyalty and cohesion. Initiates often swore oaths, performed symbolic acts of obedience, and participated in ceremonies that reinforced the authority of the society and its hidden leaders. By embedding these behaviors within repetitive, emotionally charged ceremonies, organizations ensured continuity, adherence, and secrecy. In this sense, ritual was not passive. It was an active tool of social engineering, shaping individuals to think, act, and perceive the world in alignment with the objectives of the hidden hierarchy. Across Asia, secretive rituals were similarly integral to the transmission of knowledge and power. In Tibet, monastic initiations combined meditation, symbolic gestures, and oral instruction to train select individuals in spiritual, strategic, and governance-related knowledge. In India, tantric rituals encoded philosophical and practical guidance, imparting complex understanding of human behavior, cosmic order, and social dynamics. These ceremonies were structured to reveal only as much as the participant could comprehend, reinforcing the principle that wisdom must be mediated, experiential, and protected from misuse. Artifacts and scrolls often played a central role in these ceremonies. Objects, inscriptions, and coded manuscripts were integrated into rituals, their symbolic meanings conveyed through action and repetition. By engaging with these materials ritually, initiates absorbed knowledge on multiple levels, intellectually, emotionally, and physically. Forbidden scrolls frequently emphasize that ritualized interaction with objects and text preserves and transmits information in ways that ordinary reading cannot, ensuring that wisdom survives both time and the potential misinterpretation of casual observers. The psychological impact of ritual cannot be overstated. Participants experience heightened states of focus, memory retention, and emotional engagement, which amplify the internalization of knowledge and loyalty. Repeated ceremonies reinforce the lessons embedded within them, creating a deep-seated understanding of hierarchy, secrecy, and influence. In essence, rituals convert abstract knowledge into lived experience, training individuals to embody the principles that maintain hidden structures of power. Rituals also functioned as mechanisms for reinforcing social and political order on a broader scale. Public ceremonies, even when simplified for mass participation, often contained elements of the hidden rites. These performances subtly communicated hierarchy, sanctioned authority, and cultivated a sense of awe and obedience among the populace. Meanwhile, the full, secret rituals remained restricted to initiates, ensuring that the most potent knowledge was concentrated in the hands of those capable of preserving and applying it strategically. One of the most intriguing aspects of these hidden ceremonies is their adaptability. Rituals evolved over time to incorporate new knowledge, respond to threats, and maintain secrecy. Ancient practices could be integrated into medieval orders and later adapted by modern societies without losing their essential function, preserving knowledge, enforcing discipline, and maintaining the continuity of influence. Forbidden scrolls often highlight the longevity of ritual as a method of governance, demonstrating that its power lies not in spectacle, but in its ability to shape cognition, behavior, and social alignment over generations. The combination of scrolls, artifacts, and ritual created a resilient architecture of hidden influence. Scrolls recorded wisdom, artifacts encoded symbolic instruction, and rituals internalized it, ensuring that knowledge was preserved, transmitted, and protected against misuse. Together, they formed a comprehensive system in which power was not merely held but cultivated, maintained, and perpetuated in a way that transcended any single individual or generation. Ultimately, the hidden rituals described in Forbidden Scrolls illuminate a profound truth. Control is not solely about force, coercion, or wealth. True influence is embedded in knowledge, experience, and perception. Through ceremony, the hidden rulers of history trained their successors, safeguarded secrets, and ensured continuity, creating a lineage of power that operates both visibly and invisibly. The lessons encoded in these rituals remind us that authority is often exercised subtly, reinforced symbolically, and transmitted experientially, leaving traces that persist long after empires have fallen and manuscripts have been hidden or destroyed. Throughout history, Forbidden Scrolls have survived not by chance, but through the unwavering dedication of their guardians. These protectors, often unsung and hidden from public view, were the stewards of knowledge, tasked with ensuring that secrets of immense power endured across centuries. Their mission was both sacred and strategic: to preserve wisdom, prevent misuse, and transmit information only to those deemed capable of understanding it. In the shadows of empires, hidden societies, and monasteries, these guardians formed an invisible line of continuity, bridging ancient civilizations with the modern world. The earliest guardians were often priests, scribes, and scholars. In Egypt, temple custodians protected scrolls detailing celestial patterns, sacred rites, and political strategies. Their role was not only preservation but also interpretation. The scrolls contained complex symbols and codes, and understanding them required both education and initiation. Guardians were trained in secrecy, ritual, and the ethical responsibility of knowledge. Mistakes could be catastrophic. A misinterpreted scroll could empower the wrong individual or destabilize a society. As such, the task of guardianship demanded vigilance, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to a mission that transcended personal gain. Mesopotamian civilizations followed a similar pattern. Scribes and scholars acted as intermediaries between rulers and divine or cosmic knowledge, preserving tablets and scrolls that contained predictive information, legal codes, and ritual instructions. These guardians were often isolated from the general population, working within restricted temple precincts or private archives. Their position was one of both authority and vulnerability. They held access to immense power, yet faced constant threats from conquerors, political rivals, or social upheavals. The survival of these texts depended entirely on their vigilance, foresight, and discretion. In Europe, secret societies assumed the role of guardians during periods of political turmoil and religious oppression. The Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and other esoteric orders became stewards of texts and artifacts that contained knowledge considered dangerous or heretical by mainstream authorities. Scrolls were hidden in monasteries, private libraries, or secret chambers, often divided into fragments or encoded to prevent unauthorized access. Guardianship was ritualized. Oaths, initiation ceremonies, and symbolic instruction ensured that each new custodian understood the weight of their responsibility. The continuity of these practices, preserved through centuries of war, persecution, and social change, demonstrates a remarkable resilience, suggesting that the protection of knowledge was often valued above all else. Guardianship was not limited to Europe. Across Asia, monasteries, temples, and secluded orders served as repositories for esoteric wisdom. In Tibet, Buddhist monks preserved scrolls detailing meditation practices, celestial observation, and strategic guidance, often hidden in remote monasteries high in the mountains. In India, tantric and astrological manuscripts were guarded by lineages of priests who ensured that sacred knowledge was transmitted orally and physically only to trusted disciples. These guardianship networks were carefully maintained, with protocols for succession, secrecy, and ritual that echoed the principles found in scrolls across continents. The role of guardians extended beyond simple preservation. They were often tasked with interpretation, contextualization, and selective dissemination. Knowledge in the wrong hands could be destabilizing, dangerous, or even catastrophic. Forbidden scrolls often contained warnings, encoded guidelines, and ritual instructions for their custodians, emphasizing ethical responsibility. Guardianship required more than literacy. It demanded judgment, discretion, and moral fortitude. In many cases, those entrusted with scrolls wielded influence disproportionate to their visible power, subtly guiding rulers, shaping policies, and determining the fate of civilizations from the shadows. Threats to guardianship were constant. Conquests, religious purges, revolutions, and natural disasters all imperiled the survival of knowledge. Yet despite these challenges, many scrolls endured, hidden in secret compartments, buried in the earth, or smuggled across borders. Guardians often risked their lives, reputation, and freedom to protect these documents, knowing that the preservation of knowledge outweighed personal considerations. Their dedication ensured continuity across generations, creating a chain of stewardship that spanned centuries, continents, and empires. The ethical dimension of guardianship is particularly noteworthy. Forbidden scrolls emphasize that knowledge carries responsibility. Guardians were not merely archivists. They were moral stewards, tasked with preventing the misuse of information that could destabilize societies or empower unworthy individuals. This sense of duty, embedded in initiation ceremonies and ritual practices, underscores the broader philosophy of hidden power. Knowledge is not valuable merely for its content, but for the responsibility required to wield it wisely. Modern guardianship continues in evolved forms. Rare book collectors, archivists, secretive organizations, and even private researchers assume roles reminiscent of their historical predecessors. Digital archives, encrypted databases, and hidden repositories serve as contemporary scrolls, storing information that is accessible only to those with the knowledge and clearance to interpret it. While the methods have changed, the principles endure. Secrecy, ethical responsibility, selective dissemination, and the preservation of knowledge across generations remain central to the practice of guardianship. The interconnectedness of guardians across time and space is striking. Scrolls that originated in ancient Egypt could find their way into European monasteries, Asian temples, or private collections centuries later. Each custodian added layers of interpretation, ritual, and protection, forming an invisible network of stewardship that transcended geography and culture. This continuity ensured that knowledge survived upheavals, wars, and societal transformations, allowing the wisdom of the past to inform the present and shape the future. Ultimately, the guardians of forbidden scrolls remind us that knowledge is both fragile and potent. Its survival depends not only on the durability of material media, but on the vigilance, ethics, and dedication of those entrusted with its care. Through centuries of turbulence, these unseen custodians ensured that wisdom endured, preserving a hidden lineage of power, foresight, and strategy. By studying the role of guardians, we glimpse a world in which knowledge is sacred, secrecy is necessary, and the invisible hands of history shape events from behind the curtain. In reflecting on these guardians, one realizes that they are more than protectors. They are the linchpins of continuity. They link ancient civilizations with modern societies, hidden empires with visible ones, and secret knowledge with practical influence. Without their dedication, much of the wisdom documented in forbidden scrolls might have been lost, leaving humanity deprived of insights that could illuminate hidden structures of power, strategy, and history. Their story is a testament to the enduring importance of stewardship, the moral weight of knowledge, and the invisible architecture of influence that spans time and space. The legacy of these guardians endures today, reminding us that the past is never truly lost when it is carefully protected, ethically managed, and strategically transmitted. Forbidden scrolls, artifacts, and rituals survive because of these unseen custodians. And in doing so, they offer us a window into the secret mechanisms of influence that continue to shape the world in ways both visible and hidden. As we reach the penultimate stages of this journey, the Forbidden Scrolls begin to unveil their most astonishing secrets, the identities, structures, and enduring influence of the hidden rulers who have shaped human history from the shadows. These figures are not always kings, presidents, or emperors visible in textbooks. Instead, they are architects of strategy, guardians of knowledge, and orchestrators of events, often operating behind layers of secrecy, ritual, and encoded wisdom. The scrolls suggest that what we perceive as history is often merely the surface of a deeper, meticulously guided reality. The concept of hidden rulers emerges consistently across continents and eras. In ancient civilizations, priest-kings and councils of elite advisors wielded extraordinary influence, guiding rulers and shaping policies while remaining largely invisible to the broader population. Their authority derived not only from wealth or force, but from knowledge, astronomical, spiritual, political, and technological. Forbidden Scrolls indicate that these figures often directed entire societies without appearing in official records, ensuring that their wisdom and strategic foresight were applied while their existence remained concealed. In Mesopotamia, for instance, city-states were governed not solely by monarchs, but by advisory councils whose members were trained in predictive sciences, ritual practice, and social engineering. Scrolls describe how these hidden leaders managed agriculture, trade, and diplomacy, often making decisions that appeared spontaneous but were meticulously calculated. Their ability to foresee outcomes, manipulate alliances, and guide the populace demonstrates a form of authority that is both subtle and profound, one that relies more on insight than coercion. Similarly, in Egypt, high priests and temple officials functioned as a hidden hierarchy parallel to the visible pharaohs. Forbidden Scrolls reveal that they controlled knowledge of celestial cycles, sacred rites, and political strategy, guiding rulers in decisions that affected the entire nation. Their authority was reinforced through ritual, symbolism, and encoded manuscripts, ensuring that the true extent of their influence remained invisible. They were custodians of continuity, shaping governance, culture, and spiritual life, while remaining largely absent from public records. Medieval Europe provides a particularly clear illustration of hidden rulership. Secret societies, esoteric orders, and royal advisors often operated outside official hierarchies, guiding kings and influencing policy while maintaining anonymity. Scrolls reference coded instructions, ritualized guidance, and advisory councils that directed wars, alliances, and succession disputes. The visible leaders, the kings and queens, often served as public faces, while hidden rulers orchestrated outcomes from behind the scenes. These unseen actors ensured that knowledge, strategy, and influence were concentrated, perpetuating continuity across generations. The scrolls also suggest a complex, intergenerational structure among hidden rulers. Power was often maintained through mentorship, initiation, and guardianship of knowledge. Those entrusted with authority were not only competent in political or strategic matters, but also initiated into the ethical and ritualistic frameworks that preserve the integrity of influence. Missteps could be catastrophic. Therefore, secrecy, ritual, and selective dissemination of information were essential. Hidden rulers operated as both strategists and custodians, balancing immediate action with long-term preservation of power and knowledge. In Asia, similar patterns emerge. In China, imperial advisors, astrologers, and secret councils guided emperors in governance, military campaigns, and succession planning. In Tibet and India, spiritual leaders often influenced political rulers, embedding esoteric knowledge into policy and societal norms. The scrolls indicate that authority was not centralized in a single figure, but distributed among those who understood both human nature and the invisible currents of society. These hidden rulers ensured continuity, stability, and strategic advantage across generations, operating with discretion and insight rather than overt power. One of the most striking aspects revealed by the scrolls is the principle of invisible networks. Hidden rulers rarely act alone. They function within interconnected systems of guardians, ritual practitioners, and secretive institutions. These networks span geography and time, allowing knowledge, influence, and strategic insight to persist even as empires rise and fall. A scroll discovered in Europe may reference practices that originated in the Middle East or Asia, suggesting a continuity of authority that transcends borders. This global network ensured that the hidden ruler's influence was both pervasive and resilient, capable of shaping history even in the face of external disruption. The scrolls also emphasize the ethical dimension of hidden rulership. Knowledge is power, but it is also responsibility. Hidden rulers were often bound by oaths, rituals, and codes of conduct that governed how they could exercise authority. Their role was not simply to dominate, but to preserve stability, transmit wisdom, and guide societies in alignment with long-term objectives. The texts underscore that influence without understanding or ethical grounding could be disastrous, highlighting the careful calibration required to maintain hidden authority responsibly. Modern interpretations of these principles suggest that hidden rulers are not confined to the past. Corporations, intelligence agencies, global networks, and influential families embody similar dynamics today. Knowledge remains a primary currency, and strategic foresight allows select individuals and groups to guide outcomes invisibly. Forbidden scrolls provide historical context for these modern mechanisms, illustrating that the principles of hidden rulership, secrecy, ethical responsibility, strategic planning, and guardianship of knowledge persist, albeit in adapted forms. Ultimately, the scrolls reveal a profound truth. History is not merely a chronological sequence of visible events. It is the product of decisions, strategies, and foresight exercised by those who understand the hidden mechanisms of power. Hidden rulers operate both within and beyond the structures of apparent authority, shaping outcomes while remaining largely unseen. Their influence is preserved through ritual, guardianship, artifacts, and predictive insight, creating a continuity of guidance that spans centuries. By studying the scrolls, we begin to perceive the architecture of hidden power, a world in which knowledge, discretion, and foresight determine outcomes more than visible force. We see that rulers, advisors, and networks of guardians collaborate across time, ensuring that societies evolve according to carefully managed principles. The Forbidden Scrolls illuminate this invisible governance, offering a glimpse of the ultimate revelation. Human history is deeply intertwined with the actions of those who remain unseen, guided by wisdom, secrecy, and strategy. The hidden rulers documented in the scrolls remind us that influence is often subtle, layered, and sustained. They operate in cycles, transmitting knowledge, safeguarding continuity, and shaping societies without leaving overt traces. Their legacy challenges conventional narratives, inviting us to reconsider the nature of authority, the flow of history, and the forces that guide human civilization. In the end, the scrolls suggest that the true architects of the world are not always those in the spotlight, but those who understand the power of knowledge, discretion, and the unseen currents that shape reality. As we arrive at the conclusion of this journey, the Forbidden Scrolls leave us with reflections that extend far beyond history, mystery, or even conspiracy. They offer timeless lessons about power, knowledge, and human nature. These manuscripts, hidden for centuries, remind us that the forces shaping the world are often invisible, intricately interwoven, and preserved through careful stewardship, ritual, and foresight. While the scrolls chronicle empires, lost cities, and secret rulers, their true legacy is philosophical. They challenge our understanding of authority, ethics, and the delicate balance between revelation and concealment. One of the most profound lessons is the enduring importance of knowledge. Across civilizations, guardians, priests, scholars, and secret societies understood that information is power, not simply as currency, but as the ability to shape outcomes, influence decisions, and guide societies. Knowledge, however, is double-edged. In the wrong hands, it can destabilize empires, incite conflict, or corrupt morality. The scrolls repeatedly underscore the responsibility that accompanies wisdom. It must be protected, transmitted with care, and applied judiciously. This lesson resonates across millennia, reminding modern readers that true understanding comes with ethical and strategic responsibility. The scrolls also illuminate the mechanics of influence and control. Power is rarely absolute. It often operates through networks, secrecy, and subtle manipulation rather than visible force. Hidden rulers, interconnected guardians, and secret councils all demonstrate that authority is layered. Civilizations are steered not solely by kings or leaders, but by those who understand the unseen currents, the intersection of knowledge, foresight, and human behavior. The scrolls reveal a recurring principle. Visibility does not equate to power. Influence is often exercised where it cannot be seen, where actions ripple quietly yet profoundly through the course of history. Ritual and ceremony emerge as additional tools of continuity. From initiation rites to sacred observances, the scrolls illustrate how structured practices embed knowledge, enforce discipline, and cultivate loyalty. Ritual transforms abstract understanding into lived experience, ensuring that wisdom endures not only in texts, but in the minds, actions, and ethos of initiates. These ceremonies link generations, transmit culture, and maintain cohesion within societies. The hidden rulers, aware of the potency of experiential learning, used ritual as a means to perpetuate control, stabilize authority, and encode knowledge that might otherwise be lost to time. Artifacts, too, reveal the tangibility of influence. Scrolls repeatedly reference objects imbued with symbolic, strategic, and mystical significance. These artifacts functioned as repositories of information, keys to unlocking hidden wisdom, and markers of legitimacy. Their existence underscores a broader truth. Power can be encoded, preserved, and protected materially. Objects, manuscripts, and symbols together created a multi-layered architecture of authority, where knowledge was reinforced through experience, observation, and engagement with tangible mediums. The scrolls also challenge conventional perceptions of history. Events we accept as linear or spontaneous are often the result of calculated decisions by hidden actors. Lost cities, prophetic manuscripts, and secret ceremonies illustrate that continuity, foresight, and strategic manipulation were central to governance and societal development. The past, as recorded in mainstream chronicles, is but a shadow of the deeper architecture revealed in forbidden scrolls. They show us that history is not merely a record of what occurred, but a complex interplay of visible and invisible forces. Forces carefully guided by those who understood the interplay of knowledge, strategy, and human nature. Another critical lesson is the persistence of hidden influence. From ancient priesthoods to modern networks of elites, the principles of guardianship, foresight, and secrecy endure. Knowledge remains concentrated in select hands, guided by ethical responsibility, ritual, and strategy. The scrolls illuminate the continuity of these principles across time and geography, demonstrating that while tools and methods evolve, the core mechanisms of influence remain strikingly consistent. Awareness of these patterns offers modern societies the ability to recognize subtle power dynamics, ethical responsibilities, and the significance of information stewardship. The scrolls also provoke reflection on human curiosity and the pursuit of truth. Forbidden manuscripts invite readers to question assumptions, probe beyond accepted narratives, and consider what lies beneath visible reality. They challenge us to recognize that what is hidden may be as influential, if not more so, than what is immediately apparent. In this sense, the scrolls function as both historical records and philosophical prompts, urging critical thinking, awareness of context, and discernment in evaluating authority and knowledge. Ultimately, the Forbidden Scrolls offer a meditation on balance, the balance between revelation and secrecy, power and responsibility, visibility and discretion. They demonstrate that wisdom is preserved not through exposure, but through careful stewardship, that influence is exercised not by overt domination, but through strategic guidance, and that the survival of civilizations often depends on those who act unseen. These principles transcend their historical context, offering insights that remain relevant for contemporary society, leadership, and personal understanding. In closing, the scrolls remind us that the world is shaped by more than what we can see. Power, knowledge, and history are interwoven with invisible threads, guarded, guided, and transmitted by those who understand the deeper structures of influence. Whether through hidden rulers, sacred rituals, prophetic insight, or protected artifacts, the continuity of human civilization has often depended on discretion, foresight, and the careful management of wisdom. The Forbidden Scrolls, in their enduring secrecy, serve as both record and guide, illuminating a hidden architecture of control and understanding that persists across time. As we reflect on these lessons, we are left with a final realization. The pursuit of knowledge is a responsibility as much as a privilege. To understand the mechanisms of hidden power is not merely to satisfy curiosity. It is to engage with a legacy of wisdom, foresight, and strategy that has shaped human civilization in profound ways. The Forbidden Scrolls, though ancient and concealed, continue to challenge, instruct, and inspire, inviting us to consider what lies beneath the surface of history, society, and even our own perceptions. The journey through these manuscripts is therefore more than a historical exploration. It is a meditation on the nature of power, the ethics of knowledge, and the enduring influence of those who operate in the shadows. By studying the scrolls, we glimpse the invisible hands that have guided human destiny, gaining both insight and caution. Insight into the structures that shape our world, and caution in how knowledge and power are wielded. In the end, the Forbidden Scrolls leave us with a profound truth. History, power, and wisdom are never entirely visible, and understanding the hidden threads is essential to navigating the complexities of both past and present.